as Karen Mitchell slapped James Thompson across the face at Murphy's gas station that Tuesday night. She was certain she was disciplining another black man who had damaged her BMW. She didn't realize the quiet 52-year-old filling up his Honda Civic was actually one of the nation's most feared civil rights attorneys, or that James had spent 25 years preparing for exactly this kind of racist encounter, always carrying recording equipment, understanding every legal nuance, and knowing how to document discrimination for maximum impact. While Karen screamed about $800 in damages that her own reckless driving had caused when she scraped the concrete pillar, security cameras captured every word of her tirade, and James remained perfectly calm, using every lesson he'd learned about turning moments of prejudice into teachable moments about justice. What followed would not only destroy Karen's career and her company, but show every viewer the crucial strategies that transformed a gas station confrontation into a masterclass in strategic patience, legal preparation, and ultimate vindication. What lessons can we learn from how James's years of preparation transformed Karen's racist attack into her own downfall? "You!" she shouts, pointing a manicured finger at James. "Look what you did to my car!" She gestures wildly at a small scratch on her bumper, her voice rising to a shriek that cuts through the quiet evening. James looks up from the gas pump, his expression calm and measured. "Ma'am, I haven't moved my car. I just arrived." "Don't lie to me!" Karen's face contorts with rage. Before James can react, her hand flies through the air, connecting with his cheek in a sharp slap that echoes across the station. The moment hangs in the air like a held breath. James doesn't flinch. Instead, he quietly pulls out his phone and begins recording. His voice, when it comes, carries an undertone that makes Karen's next words die in her throat. "Are you absolutely certain you want to do this? I'm not who you think I am." Karen's eyes narrow as she watches James pocket his phone. The rational part of her mind whispers warnings, but her ego drowns out any caution. She's Karen Mitchell, Vice President of Morrison Insurance, friend to mayors and city council members. This man in his thrift store clothes couldn't possibly pose a threat to someone of her stature. "Recording me?" she scoffs, her voice dripping with disdain. "You think that scares me? I know people in this town. Important people." She circles him like a predator sizing up prey. "You damaged my car, and you're going to pay for it. $800, cash, right now." James continues filling his tank, his movements deliberate and unhurried. "Ma'am, the security cameras will show that I never moved my vehicle. Perhaps we should review the footage before making accusations." "Security cameras?" Karen throws back her head and laughs, the sound harsh and grating. "You think some minimum-wage gas station attendant is going to side with you over me? I spend more on lunch than he makes in a week." As if summoned by her words, Carlos Rodriguez emerges from the station's small office. The 60-year-old station owner has worked this corner for 15 years, watching the neighborhood change around him. His weathered hands grip a clipboard as he approaches the brewing confrontation. "Is there a problem here?" Carlos asks, his accented English careful and measured. Karen wheels around to face him, her expression shifting to one of manufactured concern. "This man damaged my car and refuses to pay. I need you to call the police immediately." Carlos glances between Karen and James, his experienced eyes taking in the scene. Something about the way James stands, perfectly calm despite the accusation, triggers a memory. There's something familiar about this man, something important that hovers just beyond recognition. "I'll call the police," Carlos agrees slowly. "They can sort this out properly." While they wait, Karen's confidence grows. She paces back and forth, her heels clicking against the pavement like a countdown timer. "You have no idea who you're dealing with," she tells James. "I'm not just anyone. I'm Karen Mitchell, Vice President at Morrison Insurance. We handle millions in claims every year. The mayor's office has my personal number." James nods thoughtfully, still leaning against his car. Morrison Insurance. That name sounds familiar. He pauses, tilting his head slightly. Didn't your company recently deny a claim for the Washington family? Their house fire? The question hits Karen like a physical blow. How could this random man know about specific claims? The Washington case was supposed to be handled quietly, buried in paperwork and legal technicalities. Her composure cracks slightly. I don't know what you're talking about. She snaps, but her voice lacks its earlier conviction. The family lost everything. James continues conversationally. Father worked 2 jobs. Mother was a teacher. 3 children. Morrison Insurance found a clause to deny their claim. Something about failure to disclose prior electrical work, even though the fire started in the kitchen. Karen's face flushes red. How dare you question my company's decisions? We follow all legal procedures. If people can't be bothered to read their policies properly, that's not our fault. The police cruiser arrives with flashing lights, casting red and blue shadows across the gas station. Officer John Martinez steps out, a young man barely 5 years out of the academy. He's responded to dozens of calls like this, usually minor disputes that can be resolved with patience and common sense. Evening, folks. What seems to be the problem? Karen immediately rushes toward him, her demeanor shifting to that of a concerned victim. Officer, this man assaulted me and damaged my vehicle. I demand you arrest him immediately. Officer Martinez looks to James, who remains calm beside his car. Sir, is that what happened? No, officer. I arrived here about 20 minutes ago to get gas. This woman approached me, made accusations about her car, and struck me across the face. I have video evidence of the assault. He's lying! Karen's voice rises to near hysteria. I'm the victim here. I'm Karen Mitchell from Morrison Insurance. I know Chief Rodriguez personally. 1 phone call from me and your career is over. The threat hangs in the air, but Officer Martinez maintains his professional demeanor. Ma'am, I need to investigate all claims properly. Can we review the security footage? Karen's confidence wavers for a moment before reasserting itself. Fine, but I'm calling my lawyer. And the mayor. This is harassment, pure and simple. As she dials her phone, James quietly approaches Officer Martinez. Officer, before this goes any further, there's something you should know. He reaches into his jacket pocket and withdraws a business card holder, elegant leather that speaks of quality and substance. But before he can continue, Karen ends her call with a triumphant smile. My attorney is on his way. So is someone from the mayor's office. You people have no idea what you've started. Carlos Rodriguez watches from his office window, that nagging feeling of recognition growing stronger. There's something about James Thompson, the name on the business card he glimpsed, that should mean something important, very important. Karen's backup arrives like a small army of entitlement. First comes her attorney, William Crawford, a sharp-dressed man whose expensive suit and briefcase speak of corporate power. Behind him follows Deputy Mayor Patricia Hayes, a woman whose political connections run deep through the city's power structure. Karen, darling, Patricia coos, embracing her friend with theatrical concern. I came as soon as I got your message. How dare they treat you this way? Crawford immediately takes charge of the situation, his voice carrying the authority of someone accustomed to winning. Officer Martinez, I'm William Crawford, representing Ms. Mitchell. This is clearly a case of assault and attempted fraud. My client was attacked, and now she's being harassed by local law enforcement. James watches this display of power with quiet interest, his expression revealing nothing. He continues to lean against his car, hands clasped behind his back, observing the players as they position themselves on the board. This is exactly what's wrong with this neighborhood, Karen declares, gesturing broadly at James and Carlos. These people think they can take advantage of hard-working Americans. Well, not today. Not to me. Deputy Mayor Hayes nods sympathetically. The city has been dealing with increased incidents of insurance fraud lately. People looking for easy payouts, targeting successful individuals like Karen. Officer Martinez finds himself caught between competing pressures. On one side stands a woman with obvious political connections, supported by expensive legal representation. On the other stands a quiet man who hasn't raised his voice or made a single threat, yet somehow commands attention through his very stillness. "Perhaps we should review the security footage," Martinez suggests diplomatically. "Absolutely," Crawford agrees. "It will clearly show this man's criminal behavior." Carlos unlocks his office door, leading the group inside to his small security monitoring station. The screens show multiple angles of the gas station, digital timestamps marking each frame. As Carlos rewinds the footage, James speaks for the first time since the cavalry arrived. "Before we watch, I'd like to ask Ms. Mitchell about her company's policy regarding discrimination in claims processing." The question lands like a bomb in the cramped office. Karen's face goes white, then red, then white again. "What did you say?" "It's a simple question. Does Morrison Insurance have specific policies to prevent racial discrimination in claims handling?" Crawford steps forward aggressively. "My client doesn't have to answer hostile questions from some random—" "Actually," James interrupts gently, "she does. Under the Equal Credit Opportunity Act and several state insurance regulations. But we'll come back to that." The security footage begins playing on the main screen. The timestamp shows Karen's BMW arriving at high speed, clearly out of control. Her car veers slightly, her bumper scraping against a concrete pillar near Pump 2, nowhere near James's vehicle. The audio is crystal clear. Karen's voice, filled with rage and accusations. James's calm responses. The moment her hand strikes his face, his quiet warning about her certainty. The room falls silent except for the hum of fluorescent lights overhead. "Well," Deputy Mayor Hayes says carefully, "this certainly clarifies things." But Karen refuses to surrender. Her voice rises to a shriek. "That footage is fake! Doctored! These people are all in on it together!" She points accusingly at Carlos. "He probably edited it before we got here." Crawford places a restraining hand on his client's arm. "Karen, perhaps we should—" "No!" She shakes him off violently. "I will not be intimidated by some gas station conspiracy. Do you know who I am? Do you know what I've built? I've denied thousands of fraudulent claims, saved my company millions of dollars. I won't be destroyed by some nobody with a cheap phone camera." Her rant reveals more than she intends. The casual mention of "denied thousands of claims" hangs in the air like an admission of guilt. James straightens slightly, his demeanor shifting from passive observer to something more focused. "Thousands of claims," he repeats softly. "That's quite an impressive number, Ms. Mitchell. I'd be curious to see the demographic breakdown of those denials." "How dare you!" Karen spins toward him, fury distorting her features. "I don't owe you any explanations. You're nobody, nothing, just another person trying to get something for nothing." Her voice cracks on the last words, revealing the deep-seated prejudice that drives her professional decisions. Officer Martinez shifts uncomfortably, his hand moving instinctively toward his radio. The situation is spiraling beyond a simple assault case. Carlos watches James carefully, that feeling of recognition growing stronger with each passing moment. There's something about the way this man carries himself, the careful precision of his questions, the subtle authority in his voice, despite never raising it above conversational level. "Sir," Carlos says suddenly, his voice cutting through Karen's continued rant. "I know you from somewhere. Your face, it's familiar." James turns toward him with what might be the hint of a smile. "I have one of those faces, I suppose." But Karen won't be distracted from her righteous indignation. "This is all irrelevant. He assaulted me. He damaged my car. I demand justice." "Justice," James repeats, the word carrying weight that seems to settle over the room like a physical presence. "Yes, I think justice is exactly what we need here." He reaches into his jacket pocket again, this time withdrawing his phone. But instead of playing back his earlier recording, he places a call. "Sarah, It's James. I need you to pull the Morrison insurance files. All of them. Yes, tonight. And contact Judge Brooks. Tell her we may need that emergency injunction sooner than expected. The call is brief, professional, and absolutely terrifying in its implications. Karen's face goes through several color changes as she processes what she's just heard. Who are you calling? She stammers. James ends the call and looks at her directly for the first time since this confrontation began. His eyes, previously calm and gentle, now hold the steely determination of a man who has spent decades fighting battles others wouldn't dare attempt. Just taking care of some business, Ms. Mitchell. Some long-overdue business. The door to the gas station office chimes softly as another figure enters the increasingly crowded space. Federal Judge Eleanor Brooks strides in with the quiet authority that comes from 3 decades on the bench. Her silver hair is pulled back in an elegant bun, and her conservative dark suit speaks of serious judicial power. The temperature in the room seems to drop 10 degrees. "I'm sorry to interrupt," Judge Brooks says, her voice carrying the measured tone of someone accustomed to controlling courtrooms. "I was driving by and saw the police cars. I thought I'd make sure everything was—" Her words trail off as her eyes land on James. "James Thompson? What on earth are you doing here?" The effect of this simple recognition is immediate and devastating. Deputy Mayor Hayes gasps audibly. Crawford's briefcase slips from suddenly nerveless fingers. Officer Martinez straightens to attention as if the chief of police had just walked in. But it's Karen's reaction that dominates the room. The color drains from her face so completely that she looks like a photograph left too long in sunlight. Her mouth opens and closes several times before any sound emerges. "Judge Brooks," James says with a slight nod, his tone respectful but familiar. I find myself in an interesting situation. Eleanor Brooks surveys the scene with the sharp eyes of someone who has spent her career evaluating evidence and reading people. The security monitor still displays the frozen image of Karen striking James. The audio system replays her voice. "I've denied thousands of fraudulent claims." "I see," Judge Brooks says slowly. "And might this situation involve Morrison Insurance?" "It might indeed, Your Honor." Crawford finds his voice first among the stunned group. "Your Honor, I'm William Crawford, representing Morrison Insurance and Ms. Mitchell. There seems to be some confusion here." "Oh, there's no confusion, Mr. Crawford." Judge Brooks interrupts, her tone carrying the chill of a mountain winter. "I know exactly who James Thompson is. The question is, do you?" The silence stretches for long moments before James speaks, his voice carrying a weight that transforms the entire dynamic of the room. "Perhaps I should introduce myself properly." He stands to his full height, and somehow the simple movement makes him seem to grow larger, more commanding. "I'm James Thompson, senior partner at Thompson, Williams & Associates. I've spent the last 25 years specializing in civil rights law, with particular focus on institutional discrimination." Each word hits the room like a physical blow. Karen staggers backward until she hits the wall. "I've successfully litigated 15 major civil rights cases against insurance companies." James continues, his voice gaining strength and authority. 3 of those cases resulted in federal consent decrees requiring complete operational oversight. Morrison Insurance has been under investigation by my firm for the past 18 months. Crawford's face goes ashen. "Investigation for what?" "Or systematic racial discrimination in claims processing, pattern and practice violations of the Fair Housing Act, intentional denial of legitimate claims based on racial profiling." James's voice remains calm, but each accusation lands like a hammer blow. "We've documented over 800 cases where Morrison Insurance denied valid claims from minority claimants while approving virtually identical claims from white policyholders." Karen slides down the wall until she's sitting on the floor, her perfect composure completely shattered. "No," she whispers. "No, no, 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 this can't be happening." Officer Martinez looks between the judge and the civil rights attorney, finally understanding the magnitude of what he's witnessing. Sir, are you saying this woman has just provided us with video evidence of assault, accompanied by an admission that she's personally denied thousands of claims? James finishes, all while using racial epithets and demonstrating exactly the kind of discriminatory mindset we've been investigating. Judge Brooks nods grimly. James, do you need any immediate judicial intervention? Actually, Your Honor, I believe Ms. Mitchell may need legal counsel. Real legal counsel. He glances at Crawford with something approaching pity. Insurance defense attorneys aren't particularly well equipped for federal civil rights violations. The deputy mayor decides this is an excellent time to remember urgent business elsewhere. I just recalled an emergency city council meeting. She mumbles, practically running for the door. Crawford tries to salvage something from the wreckage. Now see here, Thompson. My client made some unfortunate statements under stress, but your client just confessed to systematic discrimination on video. James interrupts. In front of a federal judge, after physically assaulting the lead attorney in the case against her company. He pauses, letting the full implications sink in. Mr. Crawford, I suggest you advise your client to remain silent until she can obtain appropriate representation. But Karen isn't capable of remaining silent. The full weight of her situation crashes down on her like an avalanche. You planned this! She screams, her voice cracking with hysteria. You set me up! You knew who I was! James shakes his head slowly. Ms. Mitchell, I came here to buy gas. You approached me. You assaulted me. You made the statements. All I did was fail to be the powerless victim you expected. Carlos Rodriguez watches this exchange with growing amazement. The quiet man in the simple sweater has just revealed himself to be one of the most powerful civil rights attorneys in the country. The recognition that had been nagging at him finally clicks into place. Dios mío, he whispers. You're the lawyer who took down Pinnacle Insurance and Federal Mutual. You're the one they called the Equalizer. James turns to him with a genuine smile. That's a nickname the press gave me. I prefer to think of myself as someone who believes the law should apply equally to everyone. Karen's attorney abandons any pretense of professional composure. I'm withdrawing as counsel, Crawford announces, gathering his briefcase. Effective immediately. Judge Brooks watches him flee before turning back to James. Do you need any emergency orders tonight? Not tonight, Your Honor, but I suspect we'll be very busy in the coming weeks. James looks at Karen, who remains slumped against the wall, her perfect facade completely shattered. Justice has a way of finding people eventually, Ms. Mitchell. Tonight, it found you. The consequences begin before Karen Mitchell even makes it home from the gas station. Officer Martinez's incident report, filed at 9:47 p.m., triggers an automatic review by the Insurance Commission due to Morrison Insurance's pending status. By 10:15, Commissioner Janet Walsh is reading the preliminary details while simultaneously fielding calls from nervous board members. James Thompson's reputation in civil rights law is legendary, but his methodical approach to destroying discriminatory institutions is what truly terrifies corporate executives. Within hours of Judge Brooks's informal confirmation of the gas station incident, Morrison Insurance's stock price begins its catastrophic plunge. Karen arrives at her upscale suburban home to find 17 missed calls on her personal phone. The messages range from concerned to panicked to downright hostile. Her direct supervisor, Regional Vice President Michael Harrison, delivers the final call at 11:30 p.m. Karen, I'm calling to inform you that effective immediately, you're suspended pending investigation. Security will escort you from the building tomorrow to collect personal items. Do not, under any circumstances, discuss this case with anyone. The line goes dead, leaving Karen staring at her phone in the marble-floored foyer of her 6,000-square-foot house. The mortgage on this house, the payments on her BMW, her daughter's private school tuition, all of it depends on a job that just evaporated like morning mist. Meanwhile, James returns to his modest apartment and opens his laptop. The Morrison insurance investigation file contains 843 documented cases of discriminatory claim denials. Each case represents a family destroyed, dreams shattered, lives upended by institutional racism disguised as corporate policy. The Washington family case that James mentioned at the gas station is typical. Robert Washington, a high school principal, and his wife Maria, an elementary teacher, lost their home to an electrical fire that started in their kitchen. Morrison Insurance denied their claim based on undisclosed electrical modifications, despite the fact that all work had been performed by licensed contractors and properly permitted. The real reason for denial becomes clear in the internal emails James's team obtained through discovery. Karen Mitchell herself had written, "Typical inner-city property. Probably fraud. Deny and let them sue if they want." By morning, the video from Carlos Rodriguez's security system has gone viral. The footage shows everything. Karen's reckless driving, her unprovoked assault, her racist statements, and James's calm professionalism throughout. The hashtag "Trust toward Karen vs. James" trends nationally within 6 hours. The public response is swift and merciless. Morrison Insurance's corporate headquarters is surrounded by protesters demanding justice for discriminated families. News trucks line the streets. Investigative reporters begin calling every family whose claims were denied by Karen Mitchell personally. The company's stock price, which opened Monday morning at $37 per share, closes Friday at $14.50. $5 billion in market capitalization vanishes in a single week. Karen's personal downfall accelerates with each passing day. Her husband, a successful orthodontist who built his practice on community reputation, faces a patient exodus. Parents don't want their children treated by someone married to the woman from the viral video. His practice loses 60% of its patients within 2 weeks. Her teenage daughter Emma becomes a pariah at her elite private academy. The video plays on every phone, in every hallway, accompanied by cruel commentary about privilege and racism. Emma transfers to public school, but the damage to her social world is complete. The family's social circle, country club friends, charity board colleagues, neighborhood associations, melts away like snow in summer. Invitations stop coming. Phone calls go unreturned. The same people who once competed for Karen's attention now cross the street to avoid her. Federal investigators arrive at Morrison Insurance headquarters on Wednesday morning with boxes of subpoenas and a warrant to seize computer records. The FBI's white-collar crime unit, working with the Department of Justice Civil Rights Division, begins what will become the largest insurance discrimination investigation in federal history. Karen's personal files reveal a pattern of discrimination so systematic and deliberate that even experienced federal prosecutors are shocked. Email chains discussing urban demographics and cultural risk factors. Spreadsheets tracking denial rates by zip code that clearly target minority neighborhoods. Training materials that use coded language to identify claims for rejection based on policyholder characteristics. One email sent to her entire department reads, "Remember, our job is to protect company assets, not fund every sob story from the inner city. When in doubt, find a reason to deny. Let their lawyers sort it out if they can afford them." Morrison Insurance attempts damage control through a carefully orchestrated media campaign. CEO Jonathan Morrison appears on financial news programs, claiming Karen Mitchell was a rogue employee whose actions don't represent company values. The strategy backfires spectacularly when James Thompson's legal team releases internal documents showing Morrison himself approved the discriminatory policies. The company files for Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection within a month. 3,700 employees lose their jobs. Shareholders lose everything. A 100-year-old company dies because one woman couldn't control her prejudice at a gas station. Karen's criminal trial for assault becomes a media circus. She's represented by a court-appointed attorney after no prestigious firm will take her case. The trial lasts 3 days. The jury deliberates for 47 minutes before returning a guilty verdict. Judge Sarah Martinez sentences Karen to 6 months in county jail, followed by 2 years of probation and 400 hours of community service. The sentence includes mandatory counseling for racial bias and a requirement to speak at diversity training programs. But the civil consequences dwarf the criminal penalties. James Thompson's class action lawsuit against Morrison Insurance results in a settlement of $450 million distributed among the discriminated families. Karen faces personal liability that strips away every asset: the house, the cars, the jewelry, the investment accounts. She takes a job stocking shelves at a discount retail store, working night shifts for $12 an hour. The manager, a young black woman named Destiny Johnson, recognizes her from the viral video but treats her with professional courtesy. Karen never mentions the irony. James Thompson uses his portion of the legal fees to establish the Equal Justice Foundation, providing free legal representation to families facing institutional discrimination. The foundation opens offices in 12 states within its first year. 3 years after the gas station incident, the Morrison Insurance case has transformed into federal legislation requiring annual civil rights audits for all insurance companies. James Thompson stands before the Supreme Court building, surrounded by families whose lives were restored through the $450 million settlement. The Equal Justice Foundation now operates in 12 states with 67 attorneys, providing free legal representation to discrimination victims. Robert and Maria Washington rebuilt their lives completely. He became school superintendent. She teaches education policy at the state university. Carlos Rodriguez opened a community legal clinic with his gas station proceeds. Sarah Chen, a young Korean-American attorney whose family's restaurant claim was initially denied due to ethnic profiling, approaches James after the memorial dedication. "The battles are evolving," she tells him, "but the principles remain the same. What about AI bias in hiring? Algorithmic discrimination in lending?" James nods, recognizing the torch being passed. "The tools change, but justice remains constant." Karen Mitchell's story took a different path. After serving her sentence, she enrolled in social work school and now coordinates victim services for discrimination families. Her $32,000 salary barely covers expenses in the modest apartment where she lives with her family, but she finds meaning in repairing damage similar to what she once caused. The gas station displays a small plaque. On this spot, James Thompson proved that justice belongs to everyone. Insurance companies nationwide have reformed their practices rather than face federal investigation. The Department of Justice opened 43 new discrimination cases based on the Foundation's work. James still drives his Honda Civic and wears simple clothes, but now everyone knows what he represents. At 56, he's achieved something rare: lasting systemic change that will outlive him, carried forward by attorneys who understand that fighting discrimination requires both legal expertise and moral courage. James Thompson's power didn't come from his law degree. It came from his refusal to accept injustice as inevitable. When Karen Mitchell struck him, he chose documentation and strategic response over retaliation or silence. Every day, similar moments arise. Someone witnesses discrimination in hiring, housing, or service. The question isn't whether you'll encounter injustice. You will. The question is whether you'll be prepared to respond effectively. You don't need a law degree to demand justice. You need preparation, courage, and the understanding that silence makes you complicit. James spent 25 years building expertise, but his foundation was simple. Everyone deserves equal treatment under the law. The Equal Justice Foundation provides resources for discrimination victims, legal referrals, documentation guidance, advocacy training. Every person reading this has witnessed discrimination in some form: the store clerk following customers of color, hiring managers dismissing ethnic names, teachers treating students differently based on economic background. Your moment is coming, maybe at a gas station, in a courtroom, or a corporate meeting. When injustice confronts you directly, will you be ready to respond like James Thompson, calmly, strategically, with unwavering commitment to justice? The gas station incident lasted less than an hour, but changed thousands of lives. Every family that received justice traces back to one man's refusal to accept discrimination quietly. What will your gas station moment look like? The answer determines whether James Thompson's legacy continues growing or remains just an inspiring story about someone else's courage. The choice is yours.